first I will invite myself and I will try to tell some basic principles of non-native tree species management, and then 6 more to come. But Sonia, I will ask you if you can check the questions in the chat and gather those questions if there will be, and remind us that for those questions. So I will try to talk about basic principles of non-native tree species management in both areas that are chosen in our ALPTREES Alpine Space project. Those are forest and also urban areas. I came from Slovenian Forestry Institute, and I'm part of Alpine in this ALPTREES project. So there is no doubt that the forests and urban areas are under impact of changing climate and different human activities in Alpine space and further, and climate change can be taken as a main driving force and a specific challenge for the Alps. That's what Wolfgang Meyerhofer talked in the morning plenary session. So we heard a lot of interesting things. What will happen? How the tree species will react? Some will go further, some will go higher, and yes, climate change is a cross-cutting issue. Is explicitly mentioned in several themes, including biodiversity, ecosystem services, risk prevention, ecological connectivity, and also use of natural resources. So we already found out that mitigation is no longer the best options, and we must act toward climate change adaptation. So with our forest management in general, forest management or urban greening management, we always strive to act towards healthy and stable trees and also stable forest ecosystems. In our cities, site conditions are even more severe for tree growth. So the rapid rate of climate change may overcome those natural ability of our ecosystems to adapt. So this situation will lead to an increased risk of disturbances through different storms, fire, pests, diseases, with all the implications for forest growth and also forest production. The same is expected in urban trees, where urban areas, where we expect dieback of certain trees and all kinds of damages and problems accompanying with climate change. What is happening in our forests? We have already detected range shifts in forest species towards higher altitudes and latitudes, also increasing CO2 and consequently global warming affect site suitability, affect productivity, species composition, and also biodiversity. And due to climate change, also the economic viability of forests will be affected, and it's predicted that southern areas of Europe will be affected the most. The projected changes will also have impacts on the goods and services that forests provide, not just forests, but also trees in the cities. For example, the value of forest land in Europe is projected to decrease between 40% and 50% during our century. So it's necessary that we take actions to maintain and to enhance forest resilience and adaptive capacity to ensure that our forest management is still sustainable. So as a climate change is a cross-cutting issue, so we need to react on different levels. And non-native tree species, which are reality in our space, in Europe, in Alpine space, are reality. as the climate changes are reality, and those non-native tree species which are here can support the adaptation of European forests in urban areas to climate change. But yes, on the other hand, those non-native tree species can entail also risks for biodiversity and also for ecosystem functions. Not all the species are suitable for adaptation. So what we need a good risk assessment tools, and good management of those non-native trees. As Katarina already told, that during our ALPTREES project we found more than 600 non-native tree species in the Alpine Space. Mainly those species are could be found in the cities, of course. Besides 130 native tree species that we have. Some non-native trees species are here for centuries. Some have already arrived, some will arrive, no doubt. Some of them we know well. We know what are their site-specific ecological demands, what is their invasive potential, their ecology, and etc. And for some, we know that are quite noxious and annoying in our forest in urban areas. Let's say we don't want them. Some non-native trees are new, and we don't know them. We don't know their abilities and know their characteristics well enough to be sure what we can expect. So we must be very carefully when trying to introduce them. But most important is to include them into the non-native trees management. It means we should include them into the plans in our management. And those, I think those management plans, including non-native trees, should be based on our experience in the past, with all the risk that possess certain non-native trees, and all benefits and opportunities that non-native trees could give us. So whether we are dealing with native or we're dealing with non-native tree species, these management interventions can increase economic and environmental and social values of all those species. If we look at the experience that we have in non-native tree management in the past, I think we have a long tradition on non-native trees within forestry management practice. Yes, there were a lot of trees which were intentionally brought to our forests, and not all tree species have proven successful. Some of them even didn't existed anymore. So we also made a lot of mistakes. Let's say Pinus strobus and many others showed up as not really successful from different point of view. Some of them, unfortunately, developed invasive potential, but also we cannot say, I don't know, Acer negundo have an invasive potential. Yes, it has invasive potential very high, but let's say the more expressed in floodplain forest. That we know from the past, from our experiences. A small proportion of those non-native trees have proven to be suitable species in our forest, but also, again, site-specific. Let's say Pseudotruga menziesi, it could be a suitable species in some site-specific. We have monitored, we collected, we processed and harmonized existing information on non-native tree species distribution in Europe, and so we have quite a lot of information and experience with those non-native trees. But a lot we don't with other. Talking about benefits that non-native trees can bring us, non-native species do not have the same cultural and historical value as native species, but they have been used as acceptable, some kind of substitutes in cases where the benefits of their functions are perceived to exceed the potential risk of introducing a non-native species. So we can look on non-native trees as an opportunity in some cases when we expect increased yield, we expect let's say high productivity, higher biomass, maybe more valuable wood assortments. Some non-native trees can better adapt to degraded lands, to changing ecological conditions. They also can enhance soil fertility, as Bart told us in the case of black cherry. They can fill the gaps in forest ecosystems after the loss of native tree species. We are facing huge problems with different taxa in Europe, including Ulmus, Fraxinus, and so. And maybe some non-native tree species can be a nice substitute for those species. Some of those non-native tree species can better adapt to climate changes that we are facing. Also, they have other ecosystem functions that are valuable. But at the same time, we should be aware of the risk that those non-native trees could bear with them. So some of them have really high invasive potential, and that cause biodiversity decline. And biodiversity is something that we are very proud of it in Alpine Space. In some cases, they can decrease biomass production. No, not increase, but also decreasing is also a scenario. It can worsen the soil conditions. On the other hand, one species can do better to soil. Some can change in a better way of soil conditions. Due to the fact that our knowledge of some species behavior at particular sites is poor, that means it is a risk if we want those species to come and to manage them. In general, there is a quite big increase of susceptibility to biotic risk. That could be a black box for some species that we don't know in some site specific. So in our ALPTREES project, one of the ALPTREES project outputs, as already Anja told us, is transnational strategy on the management and also responsible use of non-native trees, which should be based on 3 pillars, as I mentioned: experience, benefits, and risk. But we will try to shape this strategy. But we should also pay attention to legal restrictions for growing non-native trees in different countries. The legislation and legal restrictions in the countries of Alpine Space are not the same in all countries. So we also, when trying to manage those non-native tree species, we also can apply a decision-making tool for ranking ecological, silviculture, and climate change characteristics of individual non-native trees. This was published by Ketch et al., and it's called Strain Opportunity Strategy, taking into account those three features. So, if you want to manage and to make sustainable management with non-native tree species, I think we should each non-native tree species must be treated individually before introducing, according to all 3 filters. So we need to make tests to monitor such treats as we saw in Switzerland in the morning. There's one attempt to see before introducing, we should test a lot, of course. So management of present invasive harmful non-native trees in our forest and urban area. There is also one aspect of management. This is measures of control, management of measures. But I think this is a whole another story about those measures of control. So this part maybe next time. So this is all from my side. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please just ask.